Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over all the big moves from day 2 of NFL free agency. In this segment, we turn our attention to the winners of free agency so far through 2 days. We'll talk about who had the best class of the free agencies and trades so far. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, March 11th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of who had the best free agency / offseason so far. We have 6 teams that I think have done an incredible job, better than the rest. We're going to start off with the Indianapolis Colts. We talked a little bit about them bringing in Daniel Jones, but the main reason that I think they had a really good offseason is because they were able to build their secondary. They went out and they got a really, really strong secondary addition with cornerback Charvarius Ward and safety Cameron Bynum. Getting those two guys, both young, on pretty solid deals, 3 years, $60 million, 4 years, $60 million, respectively, to go and quarterback your defense, a defense that has already been kind of middle of the road, really takeaway heavy defense, and also bringing in Lou Anarumo to be the defensive coordinator. All of that combined, I really do think this Colts defense is primed to have a huge step up. They brought back a lot of key guys as well, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and I really do like the way that they're building. This is a Colts team that I think could be good next year. I think they did take a little bit of a step back, but I do like the way that they're handling free agency so far with the money that they have to spend. Another team that I think has done an amazing job thus far is the New England Patriots. They came into this free agency with so much money. They came in with $127 million in cap space to spend, and they have done it the best way they possibly can. They went out and they traded for they signed Milton Williams, for free agent, Super Bowl champion, defensive tackle from the Philadelphia Eagles. They basically ripped him away from all the other teams, outbidding them by almost $20 million in total contract value. He was reported originally to go to the Panthers. The Cardinals were in on it. There were a couple other teams that were in on Williams, and at the end of the day, the Patriots swoop in with their big money bags, and they take the guys that they wanted. They brought in a whole bunch of linebackers to help shore up that linebackers core, including Harold Landry. I love that move so much, as well as bringing in an elite offensive lineman, at least in his prime, a little guy that's going to have some veteran presence in that locker room. I'd like to see him go out and get a wide receiver. Of course, that's at the top of their minds, but they've done a really good job on the defensive side of the ball, shoring that up a whole bunch, getting some corners, getting some safeties, getting some linebackers, getting some defensive linemen, and getting some offensive linemen to go and fix this team as much as they possibly can. I think the Patriots have had a really good offseason so far. Another team, number 3, that I think is having an amazing offseason. How about those Chicago Bears? We talk about building in the trenches. That's exactly what Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears team have done. Not only have they revamped the entire offensive line, signing Drew Dahlman, center from formerly of the Atlanta Falcons. They traded for guard Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, as well as guard Jonah Jackson from the Rams. That is a completely revamped interior offensive line that's going to do wonders for the development of Caleb Williams. You've got a solid right tackle. You have a left tackle that you can draft, or maybe even you can go sign as free agency continues to go onward. But this is huge for them. That is 3/5 of a new offensive line. 3/5 of that offensive line now play at minimum Pro Bowl caliber throughout their career. I love what they've done over there, but the trenches goes both ways. It's not just on the offensive side, but on the defensive side of the ball, they've built through the trenches as well. They've already had one of the better defenses in the league last year, especially in the first half, but bringing in a guy like Grady Jarrett to go and help up the inside of that defense, also get some quality pass rush, is really good. And edge rusher Deo Odingbo, that's going to do amazing, right? This is a really good team. You already have a couple of guys that are established down there on the defensive side of the ball. Just getting some tertiary or secondary pieces for them are going to do wonders to make sure this defense doesn't fall off a cliff like they did at the end of the season, whether that be because of the head coaching situation, they were tired, they were injured. I think this is a defense that can bounce back to early season form, especially if the offense continues to can play the way that it's expected to now that the offensive line is all the way back. The Vikings also did a very similar thing. They shored up those trenches, right? They brought in interior offensive line. They brought in Will Fries. We talked about that at guard. They brought in center Ryan Kelly from the Indianapolis Colts. That is a really good duo. We've seen them play together before. This is something that will work again, something that has worked before, and the Vikings are basically just moving that Indianapolis line up north a little bit. And then the Indianapolis line that was one of the best in football over the last couple years. Not only that, but again, they shored up that defensive side of the ball. Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave today, those two are big, imposing guys on the inside, guys that can make a difference in the run game and in the pass game and in the defensive system run by Brian Flores. Those two are going to be amazing. But it's not only that, right? They were also able to retain some very important pieces. Aaron Jones, probably the best running back in this free agent class, was re-signed for a 2-year, $20 million deal, as well as Byron Murphy, one of the top corners. A lot of the top corners had to go other places. We've seen some of the Vikings have to go. But what they've been able to do by retaining some of the important players, shoring up the trenches on both the defenses and the offensive side of the ball, this is a Vikings defense and a Vikings team that could compete for that division yet again. And this is a division with the Bears, with the Vikings, with the Lions, with the Packers, that once again could all win 10-plus games, which would be wild if that happens 2 years in a row. Two more teams that I thought have done a really good job, and it's just because of the trades that they've done so far. The Raiders have gotten the best quarterback available in Geno Smith. We talked about it. I think Geno Smith is a top 10 quarterback in this league, probably the 10th best quarterback here. They were also able to retain Max Crosby, and crucially, they were able to give him that biggest non-quarterback extension before the price skyrocketed. This is what we're talking about when we talk about getting your players in early before the price goes crazy, because just a couple days after they brought Max Crosby back for $35.5 million, Myles Garrett went and said, "Oop, $40 million, please." He went out and got that deal done. That is very smart of the Raiders. I don't know why other teams don't do that. We're going to see on our losers list, a couple teams are there just because the repercussions of that deal signed by Myles Garrett. Max Crosby and the Raiders, not a part of that deal, not a part of that list, because they got in early. They got in when the price was relatively lower. But it's not just that. They also signed some good value deals. Jeremy Chin, the safety coming from Washington, formerly of the Panthers, I really do like him. He's a very physical guy. They lost a couple safeties. He's going to fill in that Moreg spot. But this is someone that I think can really come in and shore up this defense quite a lot, as well as Alec Kappa to help with the offensive guard slot. 2 years, $11 million. It's pretty good value for a guy that, if he can bounce back after a down season, is going to do wonders for this team. And the last one that I think did a really good job this offseason so far is the Commanders. And a lot of it has to do with Adam Peters, the new GM that they brought in. He has been wheeling and dealing, not only bringing Deebo Samuel for a 5th-round pick at the end of the day, if you count some of the other moves he made, basically getting Deebo Samuel for nothing. as well as Laramie Tunsil to shore up that offensive line. Those two moves are going to do amazing stuff for this offense. Being able to protect Jaden Daniels, giving him the ability for more weapons to get the ball out of his hands quickly, like they did all season this year. Laramie Tunsil should have a bounce back season this year. They did give up a lot for him. A second, a third, and a fourth is a lot of draft capital, but overall, I think Laramie Tunsil is worth that much if he can come back to all-pro status like he has in the past. But it's not just that. They brought back veteran leadership, right? Some of these guys that might not be the most effective on the field can still play solid ball, but they are more important to that locker room. Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, your veterans on the offense and the defensive side of the ball, kind of found a home in Washington. It was a great locker room, a great chance for them to impart their wisdom on these young guys as this team continues to build. And as this team continues to develop a culture, having those guys around for another year is going to be huge for them. But it's not just that. Again, they also fixed a lot of the major holes they had. The biggest issue for them last year was on defense. After losing Jeremy Chin, they bring in Will Harris to fix that role. And he's a little bit more of your traditional safety, not really going to be able to be as hard hitting in the run game. But that's going to be good for them because they needed a lot of help in the secondary. But also bringing in Javon Kinlaw from the Jets. He had a relationship with Adam Peters back when they were both with the 49ers. Javon Kinlaw, to fix the run defense, is their biggest weakness at the end of the day. And I think having him and maybe getting another defensive tackle in the draft or continuing to find some guys in free agency, the Commanders have had an amazing offseason so far, and they are for sure on our list of winners. Overall, the teams that I think have done the best so far are the Colts, the Bears, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Raiders, and the Commanders. They've all had amazing off seasons. A couple teams that barely missed out on the list here were the Panthers. They've spent big, but it hasn't really been groundbreaking stuff. The Broncos have spent not a lot of money, but they've gotten a lot of great names to come in. Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, to name a few, to come in to join their team. Those are a couple teams that almost made the list, just short of the winner's status, but a couple honorable mentions there as well. But let me know what your thoughts are. Who do you think has had the best free agency so far? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the losers of free agency. Not everybody can have good days. Not everybody can bring in the best free agents, and we're going to talk about the teams that did the worst. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.